I really learned my first year of being married. I spent the whole day on the phone with mom, and this is how I got this recipe. Hi, I'm Susan, the seventh child of Helen. I'm married to Adrian. Everybody, we all call him affectionately Doc. This is my son, Adrian, and I have a daughter also, Brianna. And I'm here to tell about how I learned to make dressing from my mom. There was a pretty big gap between me and the older sisters who cooked, who did a lot of the cooking, and they used to tell me that they never really had time to teach me because it was quicker to do it themselves. So I really learned my first year of being married. I spent the whole day on the phone with mom, and this is how I got this recipe. She told me that one of the tricks to making really good dressing was cornbread and good broth. And so I start out with my cornbread recipe. I have learned over the years to make it ahead because all of this can get intensive on one of those big days before cooking. And so I make the cornbread usually a day or two ahead and set it aside, covered with foil. But I make a 2-to-1 ratio of cornmeal and flour, which if you're making a small batch, just 2 cups of cornmeal, 1 cup of flour, or if I'm making a big family Thanksgiving batch, I just double that until I think I have enough. I usually make too much all the time. And then I add 3 or 4 eggs. Cornbread recipes on the back of the package say use 1. I never do that. A lot of eggs makes it big and high and rich, and that's what I love, good cornbread. And then I start with a half a cup, maybe 1.5 cups of buttermilk, or just until you get the consistency that's lumpy. You don't want it smooth. And I just keep adding, depending on how much flour and meal I use, until it's the right consistency. Remember, you don't want it smooth, but just so it's lumpy, but hydrated all the way through. And then I add oil. If you really want it good, if you got some old bacon grease, it's gonna be fire. But if you just use regular oil, maybe a 1/3 cup, that'll be good. Mama used to heat it in the oven first, and then in her black skillet, and then add it into the cornbread. Don't know why, but it was always good. A lot of times I don't really think of that, but it turns out well even if I don't. And then I bake it because this batch is thicker than just cornbread that you make for a daily meal. I like to use a deep pan. It's best in my black cast iron skillet, and I cook it lower than 400. I cook it maybe like 375, and I just keep checking it until it's good and golden brown all over. It's not the 20 minutes of a regular cornbread, usually more like 40 to 45 because it's so thick. And then making the broth, I prefer duck because duck creates a really rich broth. And from the first 20 years of marriage, I roasted my duck. But I discovered it just makes a little bit of broth. And so I got a trick from a friend. I started boiling the duck. And I put it in, I cover it in water. And then I add seasoning salt, onions, and bell pepper, or just seasoning blend. It comes cut up. It's all onion and bell pepper and celery already pre-cut up and frozen. I add that, and I add pepper. And I boil that until the chicken or the duck is fall apart tender. Then I take the duck, let it cool, and then I debone the duck. Take all the bones and separate them and set the chicken aside and lay it at room temperature if I'm getting ready to fix it right then. And then I start mixing. So I take the cornbread and break it apart, and then I add some broth. And then I start adding a little salt, a little pepper. These are all to taste. And then sage. I also add more broth as needed, and then mushroom soup, and sometimes I add cream of chicken soup. And then I just keep on mixing and tasting, and that's Brianna's favorite part. Mixing and tasting until it tastes what I like, and or however you like. And then I add the duck back in. I pull the duck all apart and add it back in. And I just keep adding broth, and I got this from my older sisters. Make sure that the broth is very moist all the way through, because you don't want it to dry out while it's in the oven. And so after I get everything mixed up, and I can cover that and sit it in the fridge for a day or two before I put it in the oven. And that helps me out, getting it done early, and then on the day that everybody comes over, just pull it out, put it in the oven, and cook it maybe like 360, 365, and just cook it until it's brown all over the top. Especially watch the middle, because the edges brown first. But when it starts browning at the middle, then it's ready, and you want it so that it's thick but not too thick.
Okay, so for those of us who are not cookers, when you say the broth, is that the stuff that the water you boiled it in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
It becomes broth when the meat and the bones of the chicken and the seasoning that you put in it, it seasons the water. So it's no longer, so don't throw that away when you finish cooking it. Save it. Mm-hmm. And I cover mine in a tall pot, and I make more broth than necessary. And a lot of times I put it up and freeze it, and it's good cooking broth for several weeks. And so you save that. And I used to buy all these boxes of chicken broth. I don't have to anymore, because all of that broth left over from the high pan of duck broth, I added in. It's thick and rich and a little greasy, but it sure makes good dressing.
That's it?
That's it.
That's it? That's good. That's good.
I hope I didn't leave nothing out.
You got it all? Did you miss something, Darl?
Cornbread, broth, chicken, season and blend. Did I say add season blend at the end?
No, you said it, yeah.
Okay. Oh, the white bread. I forgot that.
What do you do with the white bread?
Toasted white bread.
And what
I think this was added probably in the old days when they were making things stretch, because everybody had big families. And so I don't really know why or if it's necessary, but I've never tried it without it. Mom would take a bag of white bread and toast it. And then you don't have to toast it really crispy, but just toast it and then pull it apart and add it to the dressing, and it stretches it. I know that, but I always do that. I forgot to tell you that before. But that makes a plenty, and I usually can make all of that to feed all of us on holidays, and I still have a nice size pan left over for my family afterward.
Good. I mean, is it good?
Everybody likes it.
Everybody likes
Well, I'll tell you this way. My sisters are really great cooks, and they are also very strong critics. And it was the first thing I ever made that got everybody's approval. So I'm very proud of it.
Very good. Very good. You good? That was good. That was excellent.